Welcome, and thank you for joining me. Tonight, we'll journey through the shadows of ancient Rome, not the bright, marble-covered halls of emperors and generals, but the quieter corners, the real city, where most people lived, worked, and struggled to survive. A Rome of narrow alleys and hidden doorways, where lives played out behind faded walls and beneath the noise of empire. This is a different kind of Rome, a slow Rome, the kind of stories carved into stone by nameless hands, or whispered from one tired mouth to another, long after the grand speeches had ended. What did it mean to be a meretrix, a Roman prostitute in a world that saw you, but didn't quite acknowledge you, a more intimate one? Over the next 2 hours, we'll explore stories that history books often overlook. We begin with the day-to-day life of a woman in the oldest profession recorded, regulated, taxed, and ignored. Steady, slow, and filled with the distant sounds of another world. A place of candles, symbols, and secrets never written down. From there, we'll drift gently through time to the final day of Julius Caesar, not as a thrilling assassination, but as a slow unraveling of trust and power, a turning point dressed in quiet tension and the quiet stirring of a city waking up. We'll then move beneath the surface, literally into the dark and mysterious rites of the Mithraic cult, and finally, we'll walk through the marbled corridors of a senator's villa, where comfort hides a constant pressure to perform, to scheme, and to survive in a world of silent expectations. As always, there is no need to stay awake. Let the rhythm of their lives wash gently over you. Now, close your eyes if you wish, and imagine the soft flicker of a Roman oil lamp, the smell of old stone and warm dust. Imagine yourself in a narrow room, small enough that you can touch both walls with outstretched arms. The floor is packed turf, smoothed by footsteps over years. The ceiling is low and stained with old smoke. Light seeps in through a crooked window, dusty, filtered, hesitant. The air is thick with the scent of warm clay, cheap perfume, and the lingering oil of last night's lamp. This is not a home. Not quite. Your profession places you in a strange legal space, visible, but not quite respectable, free to work, but always watched, protected by certain laws, and excluded by others, and yet, for many women, especially in the tightly packed quarters of Pompeii or the suburb district of Rome, it was the center of their world. You are a meretrix, a registered sex worker in the Roman Empire. You are not enslaved, but your freedom is limited. In a city where hundreds do what you do, visibility is everything. Or a small bit of makeup, applied with care in the reflection of polished bronze, you might call softly, or simply stand. Where the light from a lantern falls, these are your tools as much as any other, meant to catch the eye in passing, to mark you out in the crowds that gather in the forum or near the baths. Each morning begins early. You rise not to leisure, but to prepare. A wealthy freedman, you eat quickly. Usually alone, a young soldier. Men loosened by drink, conversations in Latin and Greek drifting through stone corridors, the sounds of laughter and murmured bargaining. A laborer with coin from a day of building aqueducts. Each one brings something different: expectation, mood, demand. You learn to read them quickly, and you lie back against the cool wall, waiting for sleep or simply for silence. A splash of scented oil to the neck, perhaps a colored ribbon in the hair, or it may have been recorded by the aedile, the magistrate who maintained the official register. Prostitutes in Rome were a known class, taxed like any merchant. Your name is a line in a ledger, a note among thousands. To Venus, perhaps, or to Fortuna, or to no one at all. The final day of one of Rome's most powerful men. Barely wide enough for a stone bed with a thin layer of straw, customers pass through often. Some are quiet, some are drunk, some are dangerous, There are no locks on the doors. Your name may have been scratched into the stone walls of the Lupina, the brothel. By customer, work takes many forms. For a few, there's a skip marriage, retirement, a new trade. But for most, the days repeat, one into the next, a rhythm that is hard to break. In a formal brothel common in cities like Pompeii, you would have a small room to yourself. Sometimes, you work from a taverna corpona where wine flows and deals are made in shadowy corners. There, you may also serve food or pour drinks, blurring the line between hospitality and transaction. Other times, you walk the streets, especially around the Circus Maximus or near the public baths, trying to catch a glance or whisper to a passing man. The day is long. Clients vary. Some are kind, in their way. Others treat you like part of the furniture. And some, you simply try to forget. Food is simple, often brought in from a stall or a tavern. A bit of bread, some olives, perhaps a piece of dried fish. There is no real privacy, no real rest. Evenings bring more traffic. And when the night winds down, if it ever truly does, you clean what you can. You douse the lamp. Sometimes you pray. You may wonder what your future holds. Still, you wake, you rise. You prepare again, and the city carries on, unaware, or perhaps simply uninterested. We'll now leave the brothel walls behind and step quietly into a very different kind of day. You wake to a breeze unusual in the tightly packed streets of Rome, carrying with it the scent of early spring. The date is the 15th of March, 44 BCE. To most, it is an ordinary day. But inside the heart of the city, beneath the murmurs of shopkeepers and the clatter of sandals on stone, something is quietly unraveling. Julius Caesar, dictator for life, is preparing for a meeting of the Senate. He is in his home just across the Tiber, rising later than usual. Merchants unfurl awnings, calling out prices as the sun begins to rise higher over the rooftops. Sunlight filters in through high windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Then it begins. The great general, who had crossed the Rubicon, defeated Pompey, and claimed Egypt, now slumps against the stone. The hall grows quiet again. A senator approaches with a scroll. No one yet knows that the Republic has died, even as those who claim to defend it stand stunned in their victory. A distraction, and within days, is slow. Gathering tension will become civil war once more. And yet, for many, especially those on the fringes of power, it was just another day. The brothel doors opened. The taverns filled. The streets buzzed with quiet commerce. And history, as it often does, moves slowly forward, indifferent to the enormity of its own turning. But unlike so many, his name will not fade. His legacy will shift, reshape, and endure. Another pulls at his robe, and then the first blade is drawn. The sound is muffled clothing tearing, soft gasps. More follow. Brutus is among them. He, too, raises a knife. The marble underfoot echoes with every step. There is a stillness in the air, calm, composed, but unnatural. No one suspects that today will mark the end of an era. He has been troubled by dreams. His wife, Calpurnia, has pleaded with him to stay. All of it is routine. He nods, says little. His thoughts are focused elsewhere. The Senate will meet in the theater of Pompey, a temporary location while the Curia is under renovation, ironically. It is a place named after Caesar's great rival, not the public stage of murder and empire, but a hidden doorway beneath a Roman street, where a flickering torch leads downward into the shadowy world of the cult of Mithras. There were omens, animals refusing to eat, strange lights in the sky. even a soothsayer warning him to beware this very day. But Caesar, shaped by decades of ambition and hardened by years of war, dismisses such things with a calm confidence. He decides to go. Outside, the city is stirring. Slaves carry baskets of vegetables through the forum. Bakers wipe flour from their arms. As Caesar leaves his house, he is greeted by supporters. Some offer scrolls, petitions, complaints, flattery inside. The conspirators are already gathered. They are senators, nobles, former allies, men with faces carved by the weight of expectation and fear. For weeks they have whispered among columns, and behind closed doors they speak of restoring the Republic, of saving Rome from monarchy. But beneath their words is another truth. They fear Caesar's power, and what he might yet become. He enters the hall just before midday. The space is large, open, and cold. Caesar walks forward, preparing to sit. Caesar does not cry out. He does not plead. He simply watches. Outside, the city carries on. A woman kneads dough. A boy washes laundry in the river. A merchant counts corns. The conspirators flee. Confused, they had expected applause instead. They find closed doors and silence. Rome is not relieved. It is afraid. The body of Julius Caesar lies still. His blood not described, but known, has joined the dust of countless others in Roman history, as the sun begins to lower over the rooftops of Rome, casting long shadows against the tiled domes and forum arches. The whispers of this day begin to ripple outward. Next, we leave behind politics and return to something more secretive. Beneath the clamorous streets of Rome, below the vendors' stalls, the stone-paved alleyways, and the rumble of carts, there is silence, cool, damp, and ancient silence. You descend worn stone steps lit only by flickering torchlight. The air grows thicker as you go. Deeper, carrying the faint scent of oil, smoke, and damp earth. Eventually, you reach it, the Mithraeum. It's a narrow chamber, often no wider than a dining hall, carved out below a building, a bathhouse, or a temple above. Along both sides, stone benches line the walls, where initiates of the cult of Mithras would sit shoulder to shoulder. In front of them lies a central aisle, and at its end, the image always appears, Mithras, dagger in hand, slaying the cosmic bull. But who was Mithras, and why? In an empire of open religion, was this one kept underground literally and spiritually? To the men who gathered here, soldiers, officials, and freedmen, Mithras was a savior. Born from a rock, crowned with the heavens, and eternally young, he battled darkness and brought order from chaos. In the Tauroctony, the central image of him slaying the bull, every symbol meant something cosmic. The blood of the bull gave life. A scorpion clings to its genitals, a symbol of corruption. A dog and snake lick the blood, symbols of transformation and rebirth. The scene was not just a picture. It was a mystery to be slowly understood. You take a seat along the bench. It's cold and rough. The torchlight plays against the carved walls. No women are here. Mithraism was exclusively male. A brotherhood, the rites are secret. Never written down. What happened in this chamber stayed in this chamber. The initiate undergoes 7 stages. From Corax, the raven symbol of the messenger, to Peter, the father, the highest level. Each stage has its own ritual, often involving symbolic trials, fasting, mock death, blindfolds, even bloodless forms of sacrifice. These rituals weren't violent, but deeply psychological, designed to confront fear, teach loyalty, and forge bonds. It's not so different from other mystery religions of the time, yet more Spartan, more secretive. Above ground, the city bustles, senators debate, slaves carry amphorae, prostitutes call from the shadows. But down here, Another Rome is unfolding a Rome of inner truth, of whispered doctrine, of cosmic struggle, and the setting reflects this. The chambers are always the same in structure, wherever they are found, whether beneath the baths of crackle in Rome, or along the Rhine frontier, or even in Roman Britain, always long, narrow, intimate, always centered on the sacred image, always hidden. There are no choirs, no incense-filled basilicas, no mass gatherings, just a small group of men, chosen, trusted, committed to a path that promises understanding of death, of life, of the stars. The rites often took place at night. One can imagine them gathering in darkness, the door carefully closed behind them. A torch is lit, a bowl of wine passed. Perhaps a chant murmured in Latin or Greek. No sound escapes to the city above, no account survives to tell exactly what they did. And that, perhaps, is the point. Even the end of Mithraism is mysterious. By the 4th century, as Christianity rose, the Mithraea were sealed, abandoned, or repurposed. Statues were decapitated, altars overturned. The cult, once so widespread, vanished into the ground from which it came. And yet the silence it leaves behind feels intentional, as though the cult was never meant for permanence, but for transformation within the individual. So you rise once more from the depths of the Mithraeum, back into the Roman light, where people crowd the streets, unaware of the mysteries whispered below their feet. The world above and the world below are always layered in Rome palaces atop sewers. Temples above tombs, whispers beneath applause. Now, let us climb still further into marble courtyards and perfumed atriums, because while many Romans toiled or worshipped in hidden spaces, others moved through a more visible world, the elite, the powerful, the anxious guardians of public image. In our final segment, we step inside the villa of a Roman senator and spend a day in the curated, performative rhythms of power. The sun has barely begun to climb over the red tiled roofs of Rome, and already the city hums with life. In the Suburra, the lower quarters are awakening to the clang of iron gates, the scent of baking flatbread, and the voices of street vendors. But high above this clamor, on one of the hills where the air is clear and the walls are thicker, another world begins its day. Here, behind the grand entrance of a domus, an elite Roman townhouse, a senator is rising. The marble floors are cool beneath the feet of his slaves, who have been awake for hours. This daily ritual, the salutatio, is both obligation and performance. The streets are loud now, donkeys braying, children calling, merchants shouting, but the senator walks with calm authority. He ascends the steps of a basilica, ready to weigh in on a legal matter or make an appearance at a public speech. He doesn't need to say much. Presence is power, but every interaction is calculated. A few hours of rest before the next round of appearances. Some senators spend this time reading or writing. Others dictate to scribes or receive private guests. A select few, those who still feel the weight of their duty, might study matters of state, examine proposed laws, or draft speeches for the next Senate session. Every smile, every word, every silence chosen for its effect. Power in Rome is precarious. One scandal, one slip of the tongue, one change in imperial favor, and it all collapses. Somewhere, far below, a lupanar echoes with laughter. A freedman sings to himself as he locks his shop. A mother hushes a child. The senator closes his eyes. Another day of performance awaits. He has seen friends exiled, rivals poisoned, allies denounced in the Senate. The emperor's smile means nothing. The emperor's silence everything. He is surrounded, protected. He doesn't carry corns. His steward handles that. The senator returns home, the folds of his toga growing heavy with heat. A final note to a colleague. a prayer to his household gods. Then silence. He retreats to the triclinium, the dining room, where couches are ranged round a low table. Lunch is more elaborate: olives, cheese, pickled vegetables, sometimes fish or cold meats. Wine is poured, always diluted. Tonight, perhaps, he hosts other senators or provincial elites visiting the capital. The dining room glows with lamplight. Slaves serve course after course, from oysters and dormice to spiced meats and sweetened wines. Entertainment may include poetry, music, or debate, but politics is never far. These are the circles where decisions are shaped long before the Senate votes. Discussions drift between philosophy, politics, and gossip. He doesn't push through crowds. His lictors clear the way. Each man offers a respectful greeting. In return, he may receive a token gift, a meal, or the chance to accompany the senator to the forum. These are not merely for hygiene, the arenas of conversation, connection, and subtle maneuvering. He strips, bathes, sweats, is scraped clean by an attendant, then soaks in warm water. In the tepidarium, surrounded by steam and laughter, alliances are formed, debts forgiven, favors whispered into damp ears. The more clients one has, the greater one's visible prestige. One draws back the curtain to his sleeping quarters, another pours water for the morning wash. The water is cold, but the towel is thick, woven in Egypt and perfumed with imported oils. The senator doesn't dress himself. A slave ties his sandals, another drapes the tunic, simple white. Before the layered toga is artfully arranged a garment, both ceremonial and symbolic. Letters from allies in the provinces, notices from clients, news from the forum. Everything is information, everything is potential influence. The folds are not accidental. The toga is a costume of power, and the man who wears it is not just dressing. He is becoming a public figure. Breakfast is light bread dipped in honey. Perhaps a few dates, some watered wine. He eats while a scribe reads correspondence aloud. As he steps into the atrium, the heart of his house, the senator is greeted by his clients, dozens of them, poor or aspiring men who rely on his favor. The clients fall into formation, and together they proceed into the city. At the forum, he is a known figure. Other senators nod. Plebeians whisper. By midday, the sun beats down on the marble. After the meal comes a pause. The domus grows quiet. Later, in the afternoon, the senator visits the public baths. Evening falls. He returns home to prepare for dinner, a more formal affair than lunch. As the guests depart and the oil lamps burn low, the senator retires to his study. But even now, sleep may not come easily, so he lies in his well-appointed bed, listening to the city breathe beyond his walls. In the morning, the routine will begin again, just as it has for generations. The city is beginning to stir again. The light of day has risen over the tiled rooftops of Rome, warming the stones underfoot and waking the birds that chatter idly in the fig trees. In the shadow of a temple or along a well-traveled street, nestled beside a market square or the foot of a bathhouse, you will find a strange and very Roman institution, the latrina publica, the public toilet. It is not a private affair. Nothing in Rome quite is. Imagine yourself stepping into one of these spaces, not hidden or hushed, but open, communal, and curiously social. The room is long and echoing, with a stone bench running along the perimeter. In that bench are cut round openings, one after another, each just large enough for a person to sit. Beneath it runs a channel of flowing water, keeping waste moving out to the city's greater sewer system, the Cloaca Maxima, where all of Rome's unseen waste disappears beneath the polished facades of marble and brick. You find a place and settle onto the cool stone. There is no separation, No walls between you and the stranger to your left, or the one to your right. Conversation is not unusual. Neither is silence. People speak of the weather, of food prices, of the latest imperial edict. A senator may sit beside a freedman, a baker beside a soldier. In this space, the sharp edges of Roman class blur ever so slightly. Everyone must sit. Everyone must wait. You hear the soft trickle of water from the hand-washing basin nearby. There is a communal sponge on a stick, resting in another flow of water used for cleaning, shared by all. The idea may give pause, but to a Roman, it is simply part of the rhythm of public life. There are no rolls of paper here, no expectation of solitude. Only the stone, the water, and the murmured breath of the city passing through. Sometimes there is laughter. Children peek and scamper off, chased by a tired matron. An older man mutters about the smell, as though it's the first time he's noticed. The scent is earthy, but not harsh. Perhaps incense from a nearby shrine drifts in. Perhaps the smell of freshly baked bread from the bakery next door masks it for a moment. Rome is layered, even in its odors. Graffiti marks the walls here, 2 names carved into plaster, rude jokes, drawings of faces and symbols. Even here, the impulse to leave something behind persists, something to prove you existed. That you came through, if only for a moment, that your body once sat in the same spot, beside others, in this great living engine of empire. Sometimes philosophers would speak here, half jokingly calling it the equalizing place. Stoics, in particular, found comfort in the universality of the body's needs, even emperors. They would say, must empty their bowels. There were dangers, of course. Rats in the sewers, or the faint but ever-present risk of flame lanterns and methane do not mix kindly. Sometimes the gods themselves were said to be angry, and gas bursts from the underworld were blamed on supernatural vengeance. Romans might leave amulets nearby, or scribble the name of a protective deity. Some believed in bathroom spirit slimmers or lares who watched over such humble places. Even here, the divine touched the mundane, and so you sit for a moment longer. You breathe in, slowly. The city moves round you, indifferent and constant. When you're done, you rise. The bench is left behind for the next visitor. You nod at a passerby, perhaps, or say nothing at all. The street awaits. Life in Rome flowed just like the water beneath that stone bench, moving, collecting, carrying away the remnants of the day before. It is in these quiet, strange corners that you truly begin to feel the texture of ancient life, not in the thunder of war, or the edicts of emperors, but in the shared routines of being human. And now, as we leave the public latrine behind, the sun higher in the sky, let us wander further into the daily heartbeat of the city, where people wait to labor, to eat, to pray, where hands knead dough before the streets even stir. Imagine yourself rising before the dawn, before even the public fountains are opened by the city's watermen. The streets are still dark, the stones slick with night moisture. Not a glamorous world, nor one written in marble, but without it. Rome would star. The stars are barely fading, and in a small workshop tucked between a tenement block, not necessarily a free man, but perhaps a freedman once enslaved, now running a thriving operation. Rome needs bread every day. Tens of thousands of mouths must be fed, especially the poor, who rely on their daily grain ration from the state they own. Old men arguing about the size of their loaf. Riots have broken out over empty bakeries. Grain shortages bring unrest, especially in the slums. The emperor's popularity often hinged on the stability of the grain dole. Bread was not just food, it was politics. A woman with a scarf over her hair, arms folded. The precise slashes cut into a loaf before baking. The soft crack as crust forms in heat. It is work, and it is survival, and it is legacy carved even into the walls of Pompeii, where bakers painted signs advertising their bread, their mills, and their household gods. Fresh bread is loaded still warm, covered with cloth and hauled through the alleys by hand or mule. The day has begun. Rome stretches, yawns, and continues its endless labor. There is a rhythm to it, this daily distribution of warmth and sustenance. The oven fires never truly go out. They only sleep, for a moment, before being stirred again. That grain, shipped from Egypt or North Africa, is delivered to the millers, who grind it, knead it, bake it, and send it out in carts as the city begins to wake. The ovens are dome-shaped, built of brick, their interiors blackened from years of fire. Others depict loaves themselves, or the circular mills turned by animals. The baker's world was filled with symbols, routines, and the constant hum of necessity. A slave, perhaps, a young boy fans the coals into life, another carries a basket of yesterday's bread heels to feed the mules. And a vendor's stall. You hear the first sound of labor, the soft thump of hands into dough. The poor often dip them in watered-down wine, or smeared them with garlic paste. For the richer classes, bakers might add honey, milk, or bits of cheese. But even for the wealthy, bread was not ornamental. It was a staple, a constant. The slow rhythm of kneading, the sighing groan of a millstone. This is the world of the Roman baker. The air is heavy with flour, not sweet and yeasty like a modern bakery, but dense, dry, laced with the bitter tang of ground barley and sourdough starter. You see them now, the great millstones turned not by hand, but by animal. A wooden frame binds the beast to the stone, and it trudges in a circle, hour after hour, grinding grain into meal. This is a pastrinum, a bakery mill, where both flour and bread are made. The floor is layered in dust. The heat, even before the ovens are lit, clings to your skin. The master baker oversees it all. Some loaves are round, marked with radial cuts like petals. Others are plain, dense, with little salt. You might pass a bakery on your morning walk through the Sabra and see a line already forming. Children clutching coins. Not all is tranquil in this world, of course. Grain prices fluctuate. Sometimes supplies are delayed by storms or pirates. Even so, in this quiet hour before the city fully stirs, there is something deeply human in the labor. The kneading of dough by lamplight. Some of those paintings show the goddess Fornax, protector of ovens. When the sun climbs over the roofs, the carts begin to roll. And as the city emerges from sleep, fed and comforted by these humble loaves, we leave the warmth of the ovens behind. Let us now turn away from flour and fire, and descend again into something older, stranger buried beneath the cobbled streets. Shall we step once more into mystery? Imagine it's late afternoon in Rome. The sun hangs low, casting long shadows between tall, plastered tenement buildings. The heat of the day still lingers, rising from the cobbled streets. But there's a shift in the city's rhythm now. Everyone, rich or poor, free or enslaved, comes here eventually. The air is thick with moisture, tinged with the scent of oil, heated stone, and faint traces of herbs, perhaps thyme or rosemary left behind from someone's massage. Your footsteps echo faintly across the marble floor, absorbed into the murmur of quiet voices and the gentle splash of water against stone. For some, it's the highlight of the day. For others, it's simply expected. And for many, it's the only space in their crowded lives that offers warmth, water, and a place to breathe. A sudden immersion into water so still it feels like glass in some corners. Business is discussed. In others, secrets are traded, but in every space, the bathhouse maintains its steady heartbeat, never rushed, never loud, like the city's exhale. The shock is bracing, but even here, nothing is frantic. It's a quiet awakening, a renewal. Eyes close, breaths deepen, time slows to the pulse of your own body. You step back into the street, and the air feels different, cooler, crisper, and carrying with it the distant smell of cooked lentils and baking bread. Sitting on warm stone, breathing in the scent of lavender and steam, drifting, not thinking. The day has been washed away, the night lies ahead, and everything is calm. People pass by slowly, their cheeks still flushed from the heat, their pace gentle. Yet if you stand in the remains of the baths of Crackle or the smaller neighborhood barnyard, close your eyes, you can almost still hear the soft lapping of water, the murmur of voices, the quiet music of a city unwinding. Even the noise of the street feels softened. As though the city itself has been soothed, the walls are curved. The floors warmed gently from beneath by hypercaust's hidden chambers filled with smoke and fire. That lie underfoot, the Romans were masters of invisible comfort. You sit for a while here, letting your skin adjust. Your muscles begin to relax. Massive domes rise overhead, catching the last light of the day as it filters through high. Narrow windows, mosaic floors shimmer beneath the water. Tiny tesserae catching hints of blue and green and gold. A moment where caste and class blurred slightly, where bodies shared space, where time was marked not by tasks but by temperature, a daily immersion in heat, in water, in stillness. Statues of forgotten gods peer down, watching the flow of humanity with serene indifference. Conversation drifts like vapor, nothing urgent, nothing sharp, just murmurs. The kind of talk that folds round you like a heavy robe. Work winds down. Conversations become softer. And people begin their slow, habitual walk toward the bathhouse. The Fermi is more than just a place to wash. It is a public ritual, a social theater, a place of rhythm and repetition. As you step inside the bath complex, you are enveloped by a still warmth. First, you enter the apoditerium, the changing room. Niches in the wall hold belongings, tunics, sandals, folded togas. Slaves sit or stand beside their masters, waiting patiently. Eyes cast downward, the stone benches are slick, the light more golden. More diffuse, a basin of steaming water invites the brave. All is poured into hands, rubbed into limbs. Strigil's curved bronze scrapers glide across skin, pulling away sweat and dirt. Never hurried, always rhythmic. The scrape, the rinse, the exhale, again and again. It is nonsense. But the sounds are rounded, dulled. Peaceful, the dripping of condensation from the ceiling, the low hum of closeness. The sound here is hushed, the soft rustle of fabric, the occasional low cough, or a quiet instruction whispered without urgency. You move next into the tepidarium, a room of mild heat, not hot, not too cold. Then the coldorium, the hot room, here. The air presses against your chest. Afterward, you cool yourself in the frigidarium, the cold plunge. There are other rooms, massage chambers where slaves anoint guests with scented oils, reading nooks where philosophers recline beside students, gardens with colonnades where elders sit with their backs to the sun and gossip like pigeons on a ledge. The architecture itself cradles this quiet energy, and when it's time to leave, you feel the shift again. Fresh clothes, dry skin, limbs loose and heavy. For many Romans, this ritual was sacred in its own way, not religious, but necessary. And now, centuries later, many of these baths lie in ruin. The roofs are open to the sky. The marble is cracked, overgrown with weeds. Just for a moment, you are there again. Imagine yourself climbing the narrow, creaking stairs of a Roman insular and apartment building. Tall and fragile, pressed tightly among dozens like it. The stairs are worn in the middle, slightly tilted, each step echoing softly with your ascent. The air grows thinner as you go higher, not just in breath, but in safety, in resources, in comfort. These are the homes of the majority. Carpenters, bakers, midwives, cobblers, the laboring hands of the empire, and unlike the grand villas or private gardens of the elite, there is little permanence here. These buildings are made of wood and mud brick. They lean slightly. Fires are common. Collapses are feared. Yet every day, life continues floor by floor. A cockerel calling from a rooftop. The clang of tools being readied. A creaking plank. The rustle of mice in the walls. Somewhere, the soft strum of a cithara, maybe from a neighbor who once played in taverns. The city's noise becomes background music, the hum of life carrying on, persistent but never aggressive. Bread sellers shouting prices in the street below, their voices rising like steam. Sunlight, when it reaches this height, rives slanted and golden, warming only the far corner of the room for a brief time. You sit there when you can. Here, at the very top, you reach your home. A small, windowless room, barely large enough for a bedroll, a jug of water, and a few earthenware bowls. A kind of intimacy born not from comfort, but from necessity. Not glamorous, not powerful, not etched into marble, but essential. The empire breathes because of places like this, because of people like you. You know when your neighbor is sick. You notice when someone hasn't returned. You share oil, or salt, or news of distant cousins. Distant footsteps on the stairs fade into nothing. The city continues below you, but up here, in the quiet dark, there is only the sound of your own breath, the rhythm of this ancient place. There is little space for secrets. Lives unfold in full view, separated by only a few bricks and a worn curtain. The walls are rough brick, cool to the touch. If it rains, the water may seep through the cracks. If it's summer, the heat will cling to these stones long after the sun has set. But for now, it is quiet. Pottery shards, broken beneath collapsed walls. Even a charred wooden beam, marked by the scorch of a kitchen flame. Echoes of daily life, preserved not in monuments, but in ash and dust. The insulae dominate the skyline of ancient Rome, not temples, not palaces. Below you, perhaps on the second or third level, a fuller scrubs fabric in a shallow basin, his arms stained with lye. The smell of your unused in the cleaning rises faintly in the air. Curtains often serve instead thin fabrics that flutter when someone passes, offering little privacy, are just enough to create the illusion of separateness. Conversations are whispered late into the night. Murmurs of politics, of wages, of missing neighbors. You know the people on your floor well, but those on the others sometimes. You don't even know their names on another level. A family prepares a small meal over a clay stove, beans, onions, stale bread softened in broth. There is no chimney, so the smoke curls upward, drifting through cracks and floorboards. A baby cries somewhere, not loudly, but rhythmically, like a tide coming in. There are few doors in an insula. Water is scarce here, if you're lucky. There's a fountain at the street corner below, though the line is long and the urns are heavy. The higher your apartment, the further the journey to fetch it. There are no latrines up here. Waste is often tossed out the window, and the alleys below reflect that narrow rivers of filth and runoff, flowing past chops and sandals without apology. Still, there is a rhythm to it. In the early morning, the sounds of life return slowly. At night, when the city settles, the insulae do not go completely quiet, and in the midst of this closeness, something else emerges. The insula becomes its own world, one small tower in the vast mosaic of Rome, and those centuries will pass, and these buildings will crumble into forgotten heaps of rubble. The outline remains. Archaeologists will find foundation stones blackened from fire. So for now, you rest on your straw mat, under a thin wool blanket. The wind rustles through the cracks in the wall. Everything is still. Close your eyes and imagine the sound of a Roman street just after sunrise. The light is low, the shadows long, and the city is stirring. There's no door, just a wooden counter, dark with years of use, and a large stone countertop punctuated with terracotta jars d'olio embedded in its surface. Each jar holds something warm, or sour, or pungent. A modest fire flickers beneath. The narrow stone-paved alleyways begin to fill with voices, cots, and footsteps. Somewhere, the sound of a brazier being stoked crackles softly. The scent of smoke curls into the airwood. Mingled with the first traces of cooking oil, the scent is rich and slightly metallic. Familiar to those born into poverty, strong wine is frowned upon during the day, seen as indulgent. The common man sips something thin and sour, more for hydration than delight. A dog waits patiently by the corner, hoping for scraps. Flies hover, persistent but mostly ignored. The city doesn't pause for its meals. It hums quietly through them. Water is riskier, clean sources are few. And even the famed aqueducts cannot reach every insula or alley. So wine it is, sometimes with herbs to mask the acidity. And you're left with a small taste of what it meant to eat not like an emperor, but like a Roman. Sausages too, if you can afford them. They hiss on the coals, their fat dripping into the fire. The cook turns them slowly, occasionally brushing them with oil and garum to keep them moist. You follow that smell, drifting slowly through the waking city, until you reach a humble Papino-Roman food stall, wedged between a bathhouse and a tattered cloth merchant's stall. But those are fantasies of the elite. Down here, in the working guts of the empire, food is nourishment first, pleasure second. A means to continue the day, not to escape it. It is dry and dense, often dipped in wine or water to soften. A man eating porridge today is no different from his father before him, or his grandfather. Recipes change slowly. Techniques are passed hand to hand. Not written, the stall itself may remain in the same place for generations. Its counter worn smooth by the hands of 100,000 diners. Some stalls offer hot soup thickened with lentils or fava beans. The stalls prepare for evening, when customers will again gather under torchlight. Wine will flow a little freer. Conversations will drift longer. The singer might appear with a lyre, offering a tune for a crust. Others serve porridge pools made from emmer wheat, sometimes mixed with bits of pork fat or chopped onions. It is filling, if bland. Occasionally, a lucky stall will offer honey cakes, small, spongy, sweetened with grape must and flavored with cinnamon. Those spices like that are rare in common quarters. Figs may be stuffed with walnuts. A handful of raisins might accompany a meal. But meat is scarce. The air is dense with aromas. Garum, the fermented fish sauce so beloved by Romans, adds a salty, briny sharpness. Lentils simmer in broth. Their scent earthy and quiet. Chickpeas are mashed and spiced with coriander. Olives glisten in bowls of oil, dark as ink. A cook with stained fingers sprinkles cumin over boiled cabbage and ladles it into wooden bowls. He does not speak much, just nods when customers point or grunt approval. This is Roman street food. Simple, practical, served quickly to those who cannot afford to sit and dine for us, though. Customers are workers, slaves, merchants, and travelers. People who need sustenance, not ceremony. Some eat standing, others squat on the curbside, their backs against the stone walls, the clink of cheap pottery, the soft rhythm of chewing. The occasional cough or low chuckle, these are the sounds of lunch in the eternal city. There is bread, always bread, panis plebeius, the coarse, brown bread of the poor, made from barley or spelt. More often than not, it is offal liver, heart, or intestines grilled and served on skewers. Wine is sold diluted, ladled from large amphorae into clay cups. As the day stretches, the crowds change. Laborers come in waves, early risers first, then midday strollers. Then the evening crowd, children sneak bits of bread crusts. You may think of Rome as a place of feast splatters of flamingo tongues, garlands of grapes, golden goblets brimming with spiced wine. Yet there is comfort in these simple meals, in the repetition. The familiar smells, the shared silences, as the sun begins to set. The smell of roasted chickpeas and warm bread lingers in the cooling air, and as you walk away from the Pepina, the sounds grew distant, the warmth fades. Picture yourself at the threshold of the Thermae, Rome's great public baths. The afternoon sun slants across the city, casting long golden lines across stone walls. You step into a wide-open courtyard, where the air is thick with heat and the low murmur of voices all around you. People move with deliberate slowness, wrapped in towels, barefooted, relaxed. This is not merely a place to bathe. It is a center of daily life, woven into the rhythm of existence for rich and poor alike. The baths are where deals are struck, bodies are scrubbed, gossip flows, and silence is permitted. The air here is thick, almost hard to breathe. There are senators and merchants, former soldiers and freedmen, all stripped of status by the water. They speak in low tones about the price of wheat, the emperor's latest decree, the upcoming chariot races. It is not uncommon to hear poetry recited here, or jokes, or even political theories. Your vision blurs with steam. The water, heated by hypercost systems under the floor, laps quietly against the stone rim of the pool. A final shock to close the pores and restore clarity. The entire process has taken hours, and yet time feels irrelevant. You are clean, yes, but more than that reset, renewed. Dome ceilings curve overhead, often painted with faded frescoes of sea gods, nymphs, or mythic beasts. Women typically bathe in separate hours or facilities. Though this varies by region and era, slaves bathe when their masters permit, and though entry is often cheap, it is not free. The bath remains both a communal space and a reminder of one's place in the hierarchy. Marble floors are worn smooth. The sound of dripping water echoes softly from cisterns and pipes. A place to escape the noise, the dust, the demands of labor or politics. Here, you are only a body in water, warmed, cleansed, and briefly at peace. The water bites, but only for a moment. It invigorates. The streets bustle once more. The scent of food returns. Voices rise, but somewhere in the layers of your senses, the memory of warm stone, trickling water, and whispered conversation lingers. In Rome, the great Thermae Caracolla, Diocletian, Agrippa are vast complexes, with libraries, gardens, fountains, and halls. In smaller towns, they are more modest, but the ritual remains the same. You submerge, then rise. Exhaling slowly as droplets bead on your skin. You ease yourself in slowly. Muscles loosen, joints soften, the mind drifts. It is a kind of theater, a sanctuary, and a machine of hygiene, all in one. The walls sweat with condensation, and the floor radiates heat from beneath. fed by furnaces tended by slaves who never see the daylight. Your skin warms, pours it, and your body begins to relax. The scent of olive oil drifts through the room sharp green and earthy. This is the oil that will coat your body before you are scraped clean. The entrance hall is called the apodyterium, the changing room. Stone benches line the walls, and niches hold wooden shelves where bathers place their tunics and sandals, and other prepares his. Strigil, a curved bronze tool for scraping off the oil and dirt. The sound it makes is faint, like a whisper over skin. Nothing here moves quickly. The bath is a ritual, unrushed and methodical. Slaves or attendants keep watch, sometimes for tips, sometimes to prevent theft. You sit, slowly remove your garments, and place them carefully in the recess, noting others doing the same without shame or pretense. From here, you pass into the tepidarium, a warm room, softly lit. Nearby, a man leans back as an attendant rubs oil onto his shoulders. From the warm room, you move into the coldarium, the hot bath. Voices are muffled in this space, as if the heat itself absorbs the conversation, eventually. You rise, skin flushed, and pass into the frigidarium, the cold plunge. From here, you dry yourself with a cloth, perhaps receive a light massage with oil, and return once more to the apodyterium. Throughout the empire, baths vary in size and grandeur. Even the architecture of the bath reflects a kind of ordered grace, but not all are welcome here. Still, for many Romans, the bath is a small luxury in a difficult world. As you leave the bathhouse, skin still warm from the coldarium, you feel lighter, and in this memory, Rome breathes quietly, at rest, its pulse slowed by steam and silence. Imagine walking slowly through the quiet ruins of Pompeii, long after the eruption has passed, long after the last breath of that city was stolen beneath ash and stone. The streets are empty, the walls weathered, and yet, in countless corners, the voices of the people remain, not through scrolls or marble monuments, but through graffiti scratched into plaster, etched into doorways, smeared across stone walls in faded red pigment. Gaius, that's it. Just a name. Just a presence. A whisper from nearly 2,000 years ago. Roman graffiti is not the polished Latin of Virgil or Cicero. It is crude, personal, impulsive. It is the language of everyday people. Vendors, lovers, drunkards, slaves, and other. Less sentimental. Take your tunic off, and let's see what you're worth. In a time when public speech was dangerous, graffiti offered a form of anonymous rebellion. One reads, "May those who read this always be loved," a wish scribbled for the future, for us. It's difficult to know whether these were genuine feelings, attempts at humor, or both. But they're real, and they remain. It is where a baker leaves a boast, where a jealous man curses his rival. They joked, they laughed, they complained, they hoped to be remembered. The city breathes in silence. The walls whisper, and if you listen, gently and patiently, you might still hear them. Each scratch, each line, tells us something deeper than official records could. The emperors may have built monuments, but it is in the graffiti that Rome truly speaks. A kind word left for strangers, as if a piece of the ancient world still wants to offer comfort. Where someone, perhaps bored or lonely, simply writes their name, wanting to be remembered. Marcus loves Julia, and then it trails off. Or perhaps it was never completed. Perhaps Marcus changed his mind. Their words are unpolished, impulsive, often misspelled, but they are human. Heartbreakingly so, these endorsements are often accompanied by the phrase worthy of the office, though historians suspect many were written by hired hands rather than genuine supporters. One wall reads, "I was here." Another, "Health to you, traveler. May your journey be blessed." Many walls in Pompeii record declarations of love, often unfinished, sometimes overwritten. Here, clients record their names, their visits, even rate their experiences. Crude, yes, but also revealing. These are the records of transactions unfit for a formal history, and yet they tell us more about daily life than any grand epic. Some graffiti are advertisements etched notices for gladiator games, or for local elections, urging citizens to vote for a certain man as Edil or Duumvir. And then there's the rude, the vulgar, the playful. One wall reads, simply, "Lucius is a fool." Another, "Beware of the barmaid. She waters the wine." Jokes, grievances, warnings, they echo with a dry humor, startlingly modern in their cynicism. In the Lubina, the brothel of Pompeii, graffiti takes on another tone entirely. There are also verses tiny, imperfect poems. One reads, "I don't care what you say. My heart is taken." Even political anger finds its voice. Some walls bear crossed-out names, crude caricatures, or slander. But it wasn't all scorn and desire. Some messages are tender, and so. We walk through the city not with textbooks or lectures, but by reading its walls. These are the murmurs of people, long-gone mothers, soldiers, children. Prostitutes, freedmen, and they remind us of something simple, that even 2,000 years ago, people were people. As you imagine walking through those quiet ruins, tracing your fingers along ancient letters etched by candlelight or twilight, you are not alone. And now, as we step back from the candlelit rooms, the underground shrines, the crowded forums and emptying alleys, we leave behind the long shadow of ancient Rome, not the version carved in triumphal arches or sung in epic verse, but the Rome that lived quietly in the margins. The Rome where a woman named Livia lit a small lamp in a rented room, preparing for another nameless visitor. The Rome where senators whispered behind drawn curtains, afraid of favor lost, where cult initiates kneeled in silence, imagining stars as they watched torchlight flicker on stone. Most of it was quiet, repetitive, and remarkable in the moment, yet deeply human, serving a stranger, counting coins, waiting, hoping, surviving. It was the rhythm of sandals on worn cobblestones, of clay cups clinking in taverns, of soft prayers offered to indifferent gods, where children scratched poetry into walls, where someone, long forgotten, leaned close to write, "Be well." Whoever reads this, it was made by people like you, people who worked, who wondered, who grew tired, and who dreamed. Here, in the silence between the centuries, nothing is asked of you. It's easy to picture history as loud, filled with conquest and command, but most of it was not. But behind it all was the same hum of life that still lingers in your own quiet moments, the need to be safe, to be remembered, to find meaning in small things. And beneath all the grandeur of the empire, there was always someone cleaning a floor. You can let your mind drift, let it rest among the faded murals and moss-covered stones, among the whispered names on cold marble, and the scratched poems of forgotten lovers. Tonight, as you lie still in your own space far from Rome in both distance and time, remember that the past was never just about emperors or battles. The air may have smelled of smoke and figs, the streets muddy with waste and voices, and now, as the oil lamps of ancient Rome burn low, and the voices of the past grow fainter, you are far from the chaos of the forum, the demands of empire, the press of history. The city sleeps, and so may you.